Hi everybody, I'm back with a Kings of War in-person battle report in this COVID times, the Ratkin versus the Herd in Halpi's Rift. Hello there! I like to watch battle reports to get better at games. So I started making short, summarized battle reports that focus on learning points. So welcome to my channel, Newbie Dice. Do like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you enjoy my videos. Okay, so I'm here in Singapore and we kind of are able to do in-person games, and we're actually having a local league running, a local campaign running using the Halpi's Rift supplement. There are some additional rules on top of Halpi's Rift. We are split into two teams and these are the rules. I've covered it in the previous video and I'll link it in the top right hand corner. If you're not gonna watch the previous video, I'm just gonna skim through this. You can always pause and read through the rules. We do have a special general character and a bodyguard unit character, and these are how to level it and the abilities you can gain, so you can always pause to read this in detail. And so my list, I think it's a little bit small, but I have 2 hordes of shock troops and 2 regiment of shock troops. So my main bodyguard unit has plague pods, and on top of that halberds for phalanx, and there's a +1 nerf upgrade for leveling up. I have Tunnel Runners, Vermintide, and that is Tango, the Demon Spawn, 1 Enforcer, and 2 Brood Mothers. One of them is my general called Kerrigar, and she has Alchemist Curse level 2, because I did take the Pointy Wizard's Hat to get level 2 Spellcaster. And in this campaign, our general can equip 2 items, so he has Chant of Hate for Vicious as well, and that makes the Alchemist Curse very deadly, spoiler alert. My opponent, let's look at their list. He's playing Herd, and only when I'm doing this battle report we did realize that the list did not have enough unlocks, and I'm not blaming my opponent. This is he hasn't played 3rd edition a ton, and one of the things that changed in 3rd edition is that large infantry regiments doesn't unlock anymore. So he has 2 Lycan regiments which doesn't unlock anymore. That's probably what happened. The list was done on Easy Army, which is army builder that doesn't check the unlocks very well. We'll put it at that. But nonetheless, this was the list. Tribal Spears, 2 Longhorns, one of them is the bodyguard unit, 2 Lycan regiments, 2 Beasts of Nature's flying and 7 attacks, Moonfang, 2 druids, one with Lightning Bolt 2 and Bane-Chan 2, the other one with Wind Blast, and actually 3 units of Gur Panthers. I think one of them has been cropped off. So 3 packs, 3 troops of Gur Panthers. So a little bit of fluff for the story. Kerrigar has just defeated Magni Blackheart of the Abyssal Dwarfs, and she has learned the secrets of the Alchemist Curse. So she brings the Alchemist Curse to her next battle. She moves towards Crack Hut, which is the site of the Nexus, but on the way she's stopped by Sakura and her bodyguard of Longhorns. The Herd are actually cursed and mutated forms created by Dark Chiron, and they wish to return to their normal forms, and they hope that the Nexus does have the power to do that. And they allied themselves with the Abyssal Dwarfs to harness the energy of the Nexus, and so she's there to stop Kerrigar, who wants to defeat the Abyssal Dwarf captors. And they soon marched to war. Here is our deployment. You can always pause it to read through and see them in detail. One of the things to take note for my opponent is that the Vargeist on a regiment base, they have wings, but they're representing Lycans, so they don't fly. So that might be confusing at times. But they are large infantry, pharaoh-looking creatures, just that they don't fly, although the models have wings. There is 2 monster bases, which are the Beasts of Nature's. Alright, so top of 1, I moved up cautiously. On the left side, the shock troops with Pathfinder were tilted to receive, to staying out of 18 inches of the wolves over here, but be able to face them so they can't get around to my flank. On the right side, I moved up, once again staying out of 20 and 18 inches of the beast of nature, the two beasts of nature, and the Lycan regiment, which is clouded in shadow right here. I did make sure that if they move forwards and turn, they would still be in my charge arc. Now, my opponent moved up on the top of 2, bottom of 1. Not a lot of things moved up, but one thing to take note is this over here. The two beasts of nature flew out from here. If it moved forward and turned, my demon spawn will be able to see it. So what it did instead was it turned on the spot first, both of them, and it flew this in this angle and out of my front arc here. So it's hiding behind the building. It flew out of my unit's front arcs, right? But it also is unable to see and charge anything because it's blocked by the Dwarven tap house over here. The Dwarven tap house makes things around it fearless, which means no waiver stat. One thing to take note, however, as she pushed up these longhorns, it was within 14 inches of the shock troops. The shock troops tread 12, but I will get to that very shortly. Now, the two set of wolves on the left shifted upwards, but staying out of 12 inches of the shock troops. So what happened in my top of 2? We have rolled on the channeling table, and the tricky thing about the channeling table for the material plane is there's number 1, hasten, which gives any unit +1 speed. So any unit on the board has potentially an extra 2 inches of tread. So when you put them out of 12 inches but within 14, it is chargeable once I get the hasten. So this is a big gotcha in the material plane that you have to watch out for. So, and that is what I got. I wrote the hasten and I charged in the next picture. Like this. This unit of shock troops already have Pathfinder, and with the bell tolling from the tangle, it also gets Bane chanted and increased crushing strength. On the other front, Alchemist's Curse came to work as Karigar channeled its Alchemist's Curse. 4 plus the target's defense of 5 is 9 dice being rolled. Karigar channeled the Eye of the Storm, which allows her to reroll all her misses. And with that, she rolled all hits. And with piercing 4, 9 wounds with vicious because I get to reroll. On top of that, lightning bolt from the demon spawn dealt 1 damage, bringing the wound count of this beast of nature to 10. And the 1 roll of 7 would do it because it does not have inspiring, although a 5 or 6 would not be useful, although it normally is because of the Dwarven tap house making the two beasts fearless. So this is the aftermath. And for my opponent, he retaliated by charging the Gerpanther in. So that first unit of Longhorns are dead. So the Gerpanthers are here to chaff. And the Tribal Spears charged into the regiment of shock troops in front over here. And this should have been a kill because it should have 15 hits on crushing 1, and he probably Bane chanted for crushing 2. So that should deal somewhere between 10 to 13 wounds. but he must have rode pretty poorly because the shock troops held. Now, Moonfang and one unit of Lycans on the left are doing this wide flanking maneuver. Notice how it came so wide instead of going this way. That is because my Brute Mother and one Brute Enforcer is guarding that flank. So he's decided to make a long roundabout. What happened? Furthermore, the Beast of Nature has, the sole surviving Beast of Nature has continued flying towards the back and turned to face the back of my army with 2 pivots. So the key problem is that this unit on the right, this shock troops on the right, that was meant to look out for the Beast of Nature was unable to charge it. So is the demon spawn. Yeah, because of the tap house basically blocked the line of sight, and I'm not even sure if it was within 20 inches. One other thing that happened is over here, the Gur Panthers charged my Chaff Vermintide, and it was wavered. Look at all the arrows over here. Yeah, so it was wavered because it's jammed, right? But I'm not sure. I might have forgotten about the tap house, and I can't tell right now whether it was within 6 inches. It might have been out. On the top of 3, that is my turn. I focused all my shots to kill off the remaining what do you call this, the Beast of Nature. So there's Lightning Bolt over here, Fireball 12 from the Tangle because of 2 units, the Vermintide and the Shock Troops within range, adding 2 dice. Alchemist Curse once again, probably with the Eye of the Storm. And this unit might have a shot as well. There is one channeling table result that increases spell range by 6 inches, so that will make drain life range 12. So if I did that, that's probably what I did to increase the range and drain. Because I took some damage here, I probably tapped into the Eye of the Storm to reroll some dice. I really went all in into this one because if I do not kill it and it's fearless from the tap house, it would charge into the rear of any of my forces over here. So another thing I did was because the Longhorns did not, the Tribal Spears did not kill my Shock Troop Regiment, I charged these Bells, the Tunnel Runners in as well. They lost their Thunderous Charge to Phalanx, but Chariots are not affected by Phalanx. Okay, so they do not get -1 to hit. Over here on the left, the Shock Troops did kill off the Chaffing Gur Panthers, but right now, Moonfang is actually in threat range of its rear. But I also have to face this way because of another unit of Lycans, and the Longhorns are in front of it. So I have no choice but to face this way. And notice how I place this Brute facing upwards because I do expect the Moonfang to come in here, and I could retaliate with the Brute Enforcer. So what my opponent did was a triple charge. The Lycans on the right charged in. I'm going to draw it out. It charged in, and because there's space, it slid in, and then the Longhorns charged in as well, facing this way, and this is after killing and reforming. Moonfang was in the rear, so that's basically a lot of attacks, and all of them got vicious from Moonfang, and so it popped, killed off the Shock Troops all in one go. And guess what? There's one unit of Gur Panthers left. It charged into the flank of the Shock Troops that were wounded from the Tribal Spears, and so the flanking Panthers took it out. Now the Shock Troops exposed its flank because it wanted to face forwards where the Longhorns were. So with this maneuver from my opponent, the Tunnel Runners were unmolested. Okay, one little threat here is that this Lycan down here on the bottom left in the forest over here. Okay, so notice also, because my Demon Spawn was chasing down the 2 Beasts of Natures, It did help with its lightning bolt, but it's also out of position to charge at stuff. The shock troops on the far right, the regiment that initially faced the beasts, decided to move forwards, but I think it's within range. Let's see what happens next. On the top of 4, my turn. I double front charge the Longhorns. So with the Tunnel Runners and the Brute Enforcer. So it looks like this. So this is the previous image. So Brute Enforcer charge the front and Tunnel Runners charge the front. There's probably enough space for me to fit the Brute Enforcer in. Yep, that's why it's beside the Lycans right now. That double charge killed it. Now, the shock troops on the right, the far right regiment did flank the Girl Panthers, finally killing this unit in front of it. And now my Queen's Blackguard, the elite shock troops, have been stuck on this hill the whole game pretty much. And guess what? I maneuvered in a way, I was a little bit greedy, so I maneuvered my demon spawn in a way to face off the druid because I want to kill off the druid, which is down here. Okay, so after I did that, I decided that I need to protect the demon spawn's flank. So I pushed the tangle here so that the Lycans on the left would not be able to come in. Let me get this out and let me lower the music volume. Okay, so the Lycans wouldn't be able to charge in, but I also exposed the flank of my Queen's Blackguard. Now I'm not sure, I think probably with the diagonal angle of the tangle is already 75 millimeters on each side, while the shock troops are 80 millimeters on the side. So with an angle, it should be able to cover the extra 5 millimeters. I'm not gonna do the Pythagoras theorem to figure that out, but remember this, right? So what else? I think that's about it. Bottom of 4, the Lycans charged into my shock troops, but the shock troops survive. That's because the regiment only has 9 attacks. With flanking on the double attacks, it would have 18, an average of 12 hits. And even if all 12 wounds, my nerf right now is 23-25. A normal shock troops with rally 2 will be 22-24. In this campaign, I have 1 extra nerf, so it's 23-25. So that's even if all 12 wounds, it's unable to route it. And even if it's wavered, doesn't matter because I do have the tap house next to me that removes the waver stat. The Moonfang charged into this Brute Mother over here, and the Brute Mother survives. Brute Mothers are surprisingly survivable for spellcasters because they have defense 5 and a 12-14 base nerf, and you can get up to rally 2 in the Ratkin army as well. The Lycan regiment charged into the Tunnel Runner regiment, but because the Tunnel regiments were uninjured at this point of time, they only took a little bit damage and survived. On the top of 5, I killed off the 2 Lycan regiment, and the Demon Spawn and Vermintide did charge off to take out Sakura, the Druid General. And at this point, double charge on the Moonfang, and the Moonfang would only be able to charge back at the Brute Mother. So that's pretty tough because everything around here is height 3. So it's not able to see anything other than the Brute Mother in front of it. It couldn't withdraw because it's engaged on 2 sides. So with Rally 2 on the Brute Mother, it's unlikely to be taken out. And at this point, we called off the game. So learning points for this game. Firstly, when you're defending against flyers like the Beast of Nature, and they like, the opponents would preferably like to put flanking flyers on the side, right? So do not allow them to fly 20 straight forward and turn without any consequence. So I did place 1 unit of shock troops regiment on the far right, as well as the demon spawn, to make sure he can't do that. Okay, so when let me draw this out. Right, this is a piece of nature, for example. Okay, it's facing forward right now. Okay, of course, a piece of nature with nimble flying, they can fly anywhere 20 inches, right? 20 inches. So you can turn and fly this way, you can go this way, you can go this way, go this way. So there's a lot of possibilities and there's a lot of bends. Okay, so one of the things that you must make sure you prevent, you can't it's very difficult to figure out all the possible combination, but one thing that's very easy to see is do not allow him to fly straight forward and turn around at the end. Okay, that because your forces will be somewhere here. If you allow him to do that, he'll be facing the flank of your entire force. Okay, so this is very easy to at least stop. Okay, so in return, so I did guard most of the angles. So the only place that my opponent could land that's safe from my charge was a place that he could not charge out the next round anyway. So I did have 2 turns to deal with that threat, and I was pretty lucky on the first turn to take out 1 beast of nature with the spiked alchemist curse hit rolls. Yeah, if not, if he still had both and he flew in the second round, I could only probably take out 1 of them. So Halpi's Rift, if you're playing the campaign supplement, for the material plane, do watch out for these few things. Alchemist Curse is number 1, Hasten, Enrage, and sometimes Courageous Might. So this is Alchemist Curse, best taken at a level 2. It's just the right point to value ratio. It has a base number of 4, and basically it's minimum 6 because there's nothing worse than defense 2 in the game. So it's minimally rolling 6 dice, and that's already stronger than your usual Lightning Bolt 5. Lightning Bolt suffers from cover. This one doesn't. The only bad part about it is the limited range of 12 inches. Okay, and against defense 3, it's 7 dice, right? Against defense 4, it's 8 dice and better wound rolling than Lightning Bolt. Defense 5 and 6, it's even better than Lightning Bolt. Okay, so even at defense 2, I feel that it's comparable to Lightning Bolt, right? Doesn't suffer cover, but shorter range. 1 dice more than most casters, which has Lightning Bolt 5 at best. Yeah, so it's really a very strong spell. And on the material plane, there's also the Eye of the Storm, which is that 12-inch dominate circle. All leveled casters can reroll hit rolls by taking 1 damage. It's really value for my Brood Mother because it does have Radiance of Life, and it's very much value for Drain Life casters because they will immediately able to heal off the damage that they dealt. So next is the channeling table. Okay, so Hasten is the number 1 gotcha in the material plane. A lot of people are very used to the opponent's threat ranges, 6-inch for ogres, 5-inch for infantry, even 20 inches for flyers. But if the opponent roll haste +1 speed, they might be able to charge you when you thought you couldn't. So one thing you could do is to make sure you're you buffer an extra 2 inches, so you stay out of 14 inches of ogres. You stay out of extra 2 inches out, right? Stay out of 22 inches for flyers, so on and so forth. So the material plane does increase that threat range across the board, which is pretty scary. Enrage is another cool ability, +5 attacks in melee that swings the math quite a bit, and especially if you're flanking, that means it's 10 extra attacks, right? Now, sometimes Courageous Might. So why do we put sometimes? It's because this rule allows it to get +1 Crushing Strike and double attacks versus heroes, monsters, and titans. So the thing about this is, what if the character already has Duelist? So is that double and 4 times? Well, it's not clear in the ruling, and since this is a campaign not meant to be competitive supplement, our ruling is go ahead, quadruple the attacks. So one of our players is playing Brother Mark, and he has that character is the Order of the Abyssal Hunt hero. So he has 4 attacks base, doubling attacks against monsters and titans. He took the duelist item. So if he rolls this, he gets 16 attacks against titans, monsters, or heroes at Crushing 3 because he is base 2. So that's something very scary. Other learning points. So when your flyers fly behind the enemy's arcs, so one thing, of course, you have to watch out for individuals that can turn and charge you still. And if you can't prevent that, you can force the individual to charge your flank. Because they don't get double attacks on flank, and your front is still unopposed, you can still charge things. You just lose flying and nimble, but you still have 20-inch threat. Another thing you have to be wary of is strong shooting. Now, my Ratkin list doesn't usually have strong shooting, but that Alchemist Curse really dialed it up to 11. 9 wounds with just Alchemist Curse on the first round. If not, I only have maybe I use the Blight Staff for 5 shots and a Lightning Bolt for 5 shots, and they will sometimes suffer cover depending on the positioning. Now, when you're chasing flyers, try not to hinder yourself too much. Like my Demon Spawn and the regiment of shock troops, it tried to chase down the flyer, but at most of the times, the opponent can still find a safe place to fly away. Okay, you can still fly out of line of sight. And then that regiment of shock troops, especially since it's just a speed 6 infantry, is stuck for 1 turn, reforming and doing something else. So it just wasted 1 turn. So if you spend too many units trying to chase down the flyer, position yourself. Okay, if he lands here, I can charge him. If he lands there, I can charge him. If he charge this unit, I can charge him. So you start to position your units in multiple areas where his flyer might end up. He is definitely able to still find a place to land where he's safe. And even if he couldn't charge, if he has forced you to position 2, 3, or even 4 units in anticipation of him, the flyer has already done its job without even charging by delaying your 2, 3, or 4 units, right? So sometimes you want to anticipate where he might fly to, but you also want to leave yourself with options, So if you don't go here, at least this unit can still march forward and can still charge other stuff. So if you're able to do that, that's the best. So if it's possible, try to leave space between your hammer and your chaff. Okay, so in my earlier example, in the earlier game, my Vermintide suffered a waiver, yeah, and then Vermintide. Okay, and then the shock troops are unable to do anything, stuck behind it. Okay, it can't pivot past. So if there was more space, at least I think I might be able to pivot past and go somewhere, either charge or go somewhere. So Vermintide, if my shock troops were further back. Okay, so I could still pivot and go this way, for example, or pivot and go the other way. Or sometimes even charge if the opponent's footprint is larger than mine. The Panthers are 5-inch larger, but I don't think that's enough for the shock troops to charge. So at least it can move somewhere where it has a free charge next round. Okay, so if I have moved it, let's say the shock troops moved here, right? At least next round it can still go out, or it can charge the Panthers that's in the flank. Yeah, stuff like that. Of course, make sure you don't expose the flank to something else. Okay, speaking about herd, I find my opponent's list quite alright. In terms of infantry, I quite like Longhorns. They do have 20 attacks hitting on trees, Crush 1, Thunder 1, and because he has Pathfinder, it will get its Thunder most of the time. Of course, you need a delivery system because it only has a 12-inch threat range. That means you do have to chaff things up, make sure your Longhorns get the first charge. to get that crushing 2 in, because it is not cheap. It's still 200 point unit. But if you do get that charge, they do hurt quite a lot. They are more painful than these spirit walkers, which a lot of people like to play. The spirit walkers are a great deal cheaper. They're 40 points cheaper, but they do have that lower defense. I'm not sure about the nerf. The spirit walkers are fearless though, and they have wild charge D3, which extends their threat range up to 15 inches. So I don't mind the longhorns. I don't mind the spirit walkers. I don't mind the tribal spears. One horde of it as well. So the thing about that's always used in a horde of spearmen, right? There are several armies who like to use that. Elf is one example of it. And the thing about the tribal spears is they do have a offensive capability, because they are Pathfinder, so they won't get hindered on the charge most of the time. And they have Thunderous 1, so if you get the first charge, you are charging with 15 hits, Thunderous 1, right? 30 attacks, hitting on 4. So what you could do to help it is, once again, it's meant to be a anvil with some hammer potential. So you want to make sure it does its hammer to be worth it, because it costs at a premium higher than other spearmen for that Pathfinder and Thunderous. So if you don't use it, it's a waste. So you want to try to make sure that your spears do get one first charge. Some of the things that help you with that is, once again, either chaff or increasing the speed by 1. One of my common opponents, Matt G, likes to run his tribal spears with +1 speed haste, so they do threaten 14 and much more likely to get a first charge in. So other than that, Lycans are pretty expensive, so I do like that the opponent brings them in regiments, although that means it doesn't unlock, but it keeps it affordable, at a more affordable range, and still have that potential and threaten people's flank and force people to play a little bit differently while not committing too much points into it. So of course, you can try to run it at an extreme level. There's a video on Dash 28 by Jonathan Fox. He ran herd with 3 hordes of Lycans, 3 Lycan alphas, one of them being Moonfang, 3 beasts of nature, 3 beasts, and 3 chaff. I forgot whether it's Gur Panthers or Harpies, but the whole list is so mobile. So you saturate the board with so many nimble threats. At some point, the opponent will have to expose a flank, and if you're able to capitalize it, you might be able to get the game in your favor. So that is dialing it to the extreme. So if you're not dialing it to the extreme, I think 2 regiments are pretty. It's a pretty cool loadout, especially with 2 beasts of nature as well. Next, we'd like to talk about the map, and I'd like to just say that when you're looking at the map and how to deploy on how to play the game, your strategy, one of the key things is to look at the blocking terrain. The blocking terrain is pretty important. Yeah. Why? Because I'll show you the map. So this is darker and it's showing the 2 pieces of blocking terrain here on the top left and the bottom right, which is the tap house over here. The key thing about this blocking terrain is that your units, nothing can ever land there. So it is a space that is blocked away, and that's the only thing that blocks space permanently on the map. So it is dead space, and it causes there to be lanes of movement being blocked, limiting the lanes of movement, the lanes of line of sight, the lanes of landing, and the lanes of flanking. So notice, because of these 2 blocking terrains, it kind of cuts the map like this. I'm going to draw the line like this and like this. Okay, so this, notice how both of us put majority of our forces here and a little bit on the outside. Okay, and this being dominate, the key is to win the center, right? Yeah. And I wanted to take advantage of my blocking terrain. So what I did was to put my most important unit next to it, because when I move up, next to the tap house, my flank is protected. Nobody can ever charge me in this flank, which was why the Lycan didn't have much things good. Not that's not the Lycans, that's the piece. The Lycans are here in the shadow. They did not have this flanking potential, right? So one strategy is being neutered just based on the positioning of the blocking terrain. Okay, so perhaps the opponent could try to put more on this left side where the flanking is much more possible. But of course, the second thing that comes into play is forests, which blocks line of sight until you're in them, right? So that also affected his flanking strategy quite a little bit as well. So most important of the map is the blocking terrain, and then the second important thing I would say is the forests, and then the hills. So do if you're a little bit overwhelmed on how to deploy, how to read the map, how to decide your strategy, uh, base your decisions off the blocking terrains first and foremost. Yeah, because that block of lanes, that block of flanks, that blocks of positionings, a lot of things are affected. The game and the map is affected most hugely by the blocking terrains. And that is the end of the battle report. I hope you enjoyed this. And the next one will be in the Abyssal Plain, where I continue this local campaign. And I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the video, once again, do like, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell icon for notifications of my future videos. It will really mean a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon.